Hey everyone, it's Kathy the Vegan Prepper, and today we are getting eyes on a 2-week food supply. Stick around. Vegan Prepper. Vegan Prepper. We definitely recommend beginning with about 2 weeks worth of food storage as your goal, your very first goal, especially if you're only just starting, for multiple reasons. And I'm not only talking about food, I also talk about water. If you really want to learn about how to prioritize your preps, especially if you're on a really tight budget, I have a whole video that I've made about prioritizing your preps and how I did it, and I'll link it down below. So I'm not going to really talk so much about that. Right now, this video is very much focused on looking at what 2 weeks worth of food looks like for how many people you may have in your household. But again, I think 2 weeks is a great milestone because it's normally, I would think, enough of an amount of food that it kind of stretches your comfort level as far as what you can store, but it isn't like such a large amount that, especially if you're not prepared to store that much food, that you might let some go to waste because you weren't prepared with whatever, Mylar bags or oxygen absorbers or whatever it is that you need to store that food long term. 2 weeks is not a long-term food supply. Even if you aren't set up for your ideal conditions of storing food long term, 2 weeks worth of food is something that you could go through in, about 2 weeks, right? So we're not talking about something that you necessarily have to be prepared to store for really long-term amounts of time when you're looking at kind of a beginner level like that. The other great thing about it is as soon as you can hit 2 weeks officially, calorically, 2 weeks of water, now you know how much you need. You can see kind of visually what does that entail, how much space is this going to take up. You can begin planning for how you can hit that next milestone, which for us was 3 months, and then it was 6 months, and then it was a year. You keep kind of moving on, and every single time you hit a milestone, it gets a little easier to plan and to prepare how you're going to Tetrisol that food into your life, because it is a lot. And I think there's a whole logistical kind of life rearranging side to prepping and storing large amounts of food that not a lot of people talk about, and we do try to show some of that on the channel. We have ended up rearranging our entire house, and I know that probably sounds crazy, but we have rearranged our whole house so that we have this nice big room that we have dedicated now basically to food storage amongst other things. But we got this space in our house because we rearranged our house to get it, because we were recognizing logistically what we needed to do. Modern houses, for the most part, and like if you're feeling overwhelmed and you're feeling stressed and you're feeling like you look like you're crazy because you're gonna have to rearrange something in order to fit some food in, modern houses are not equipped to store food anymore. Like the larder, the pantry, cellars, things like that. We don't have spaces like that anymore built into our modern homes, because in modern times, we have outsourced the storage of our food to the grocery store. So there is a reason that you don't have space to store food in your home. And it isn't because prepping is crazy. It's because modern times have changed the way that we behave in our homes. So anyway, that's a whole other thing that we could talk about another time, but I just want to say that for anybody who's just starting out and feeling overwhelmed and feeling like you're going to look crazy. It's just sort of, it kind of comes with the territory, maybe because we're vegan, we're a little bit comfortable with looking crazy to people, so we don't really care about this anymore. But it's just sort of par for the course. But understand, you're not crazy, and there is a reason that you're having difficulty figuring out places to store food. It's because we don't have places to store food anymore. But that's enough of an intro. Let's get to actually looking at what 2 weeks worth of food looks like, depending on how many people you have. All right, I have notes. So basically, just for the ease of math and just for ease in general, I have calculated my calories per person per day at 2,500. I feel like that's a good average. There's many people who need closer to 3,000, people who will need closer to 2,000. Children, of course, will need less. Men will need more than women, etc., etc., etc. The best thing that you can do is go online and find a BMR calculator. That's a basal metabolic rate calculator, which I will link into the description box below. You can go there, enter your details, weight, age, height, and get basically the amount of calories that you would need every single day if your body were 100% stationary, like if you were in a coma, this is how many calories you would need to maintain your body. Obviously, with physical activity, you will need more calories than your basal metabolic rate, but that represents your bare minimum calories required per day. This is a really important number to have on hand for your family. Also, too, for instance, my personal calories per day is less than 2,500, and like Adam's is well over 3,000. But my husband, because of all his physical activity, however, keeping in mind that if we were in, kind of a situation where we were eating off of stores, potentially an emergency situation, it is entirely possible that we will be performing much more physical labor than we normally would be performing, just with the necessity of, whatever's gone down. So if you can build a buffer estimate high, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Estimate high per person calories per day, because in an emergency situation, you are likely not just sitting around looking at your phone. You're likely, physically doing more things than you normally would have, whether that's hauling water, chopping wood for fires, whatever. It could be a million things, whatever. You might be working harder, so it's good to build a buffer. But like I said, just for our calculations, our purposes today, I will be calculating the calories per person per day at 2,500. That means that for just one person over the course of 2 weeks, 2,500 times 14 equals 35,000. Which means per person for every 2 weeks, you need 35,000 calories. So for 2 people, that's 70,000 calories. For 3 people, it's 105,000 calories. For 4 people, it's 140,000 calories. 5 people, 175,000 calories, etc., etc., etc. And that is how you know for sure whether or not you have enough calories on hand. This is not about whether or not you have your ketchup or like little extras or like chips or cookies or whatever. I'm just going to be showing you in bulk bags what that looks like visually, and then we'll talk about that in just a second. Because for me personally, when I started realizing how important it is to really know and understand how many calories are in your stores, and I started looking at physically what 2 weeks worth of food looked like, it ended up being both an encouragement, like I felt like I got a little pat on the back, but then also it became very sobering and I got kind of a kick in the pants. And I'm hoping that you guys get that as well, like a pat on the back, encouragement, you're doing really well, but then also like a kick in the pants, like we got to keep going. So let's go ahead and actually look physically at the food. Each one of these bags, the ones in the front are all 25 pounds. The one in the back is a 50-pound bag of wheat berries. Also, for the most part, 25-pound bags of grains and beans tend to average around 40,000 calories a piece. So if we're building generosity into our storage, you can say to yourself or think sort of as a general rule that a 25-pound bag of grains or beans is about a 2-week food supply for one person. So this is kind of where the pat on the back and the kick in the pants thing comes into play. For my family, a 2-week food supply would be 3 of the bags in the front. That's 3 25-pound bags plus the 50-pound bag in the back. So that's for 5 people, and that's 2 weeks. And so this is kind of, like I said, where the pat in the back and the kick in the pants come into play, because pat on the back, good for you. If you've already begun stocking, it's entirely possible that you've already hit a 2-week food supply, because it doesn't really take very long to get there. So you can visually see, hey, like we're already set for 2 weeks just after buying 125 pounds worth of food. However, the kick in the pants comes in when you look at that and you think, oh my gosh, that's only 2 weeks worth of food. And it looks visually like a huge amount. I've shared on this channel before that I have a friend who I sort of have talked about preparing, and like we've talked about it a little bit here and there. And she got herself a 25-pound bag of beans, and she was so proud, and she told me, she's like, now I'm set. Because especially if you've never stocked before, you can view a single 25-pound bag of food as a huge amount of food. But the truth is, it's only enough for one person for 2 weeks. I'm gonna put on the screen, because I didn't do it before, the math for how long a 25-pound bag of food will last for, you know, incrementally larger numbers of people. And you see how quickly the supply, what seems like a large supply, diminishes very quickly the more people you add. And so it's not meant to be discouraging, but just sort of also to overcome, I think, some of our food storage bias, if I can say it like that. Like I said again, our modern homes, our modern lives, the modern world is not really set up to be friendly towards storing your own food. And so it can look like an insane amount of food. Like these buckets back here, I'm sure people have looked at my videos and said that we're crazy for stocking this much food. I don't want to tell people, but I mean, I will. I'm just saying, like, I would like almost not want to tell those people this isn't even our storage. This is not our stocking. This is our everyday food buckets. That's why they all have gamullets, because we're getting in and out of them all of the time. So this is like our daily food. This isn't even our food storage. So it's like kind of a funny thing to sort of try to put your mind in the frame of storing food if you never have before. And I know that sometimes it can be difficult, because if you see a large amount, you can think that you're set, like my friend says, because of her one 25-pound bag of beans. But really, we need to be calculating how many calories are in those bags, and honestly, how many days is that going to serve the number of people in our households. And hopefully this was encouraging to you. And I do definitely recommend 2 weeks is a great starting point. And then, like I said, we went to 3 months, and then 6 months, and then a year. I think that starting it like that, again, you can build it up. But for us personally too, in the desert, the other reason we did it kind of incrementally was because we wanted to make sure that we stored enough water to match our food. So for us, that meant purchasing large water tanks. It meant purchasing other things other than just food, because we live in a desert. It is definitely something that's on our minds to make sure that we have plenty of water in preparation along with our food. And also, especially because so much of our storage is dry. Also, again, because we live in a desert, I've talked about it many times. Like if we lost cooling during power, I do have some nice, lovely little home canned goods up here, but if we lost our AC in the summer, our house gets close to 100 degrees. It would get more than 100 degrees in the summer, like really fast. And that is something that would compromise the seal on our canned goods. So for us personally, that's a huge reason why we focus so much on dried storage and dehydrated foods. Because it wouldn't be compromised in the kind of most probable event for our area, which would be either losing an AC, which would be a personal stuff that hit the fan situation, or losing power en masse in our city, which would be a citywide stuff hit the fan situation. And then especially if something like that happened here, and we see the results of, like, say, what happened in Texas during the blizzard, where because of the wide-scale power outage, many people lost access to water. I kind of don't want to think about what our city would look like if people suddenly lost access to water. So we prioritize water storage, and that's another reason, like I said, we sort of did it incrementally because we did 2 weeks of food and water. Then we had to do 3 months of food and water. There were logistics to figure out, how are we going to store that much water, especially like in a hidden way. It's kind of hidden because we don't want people to see that we have all this water, and all of that. Like, so there's a logistical side to it, and like practically speaking, that I just like to sort of point out and mention, which is another reason to kind of start slow and tick your boxes and count your calories and count your gallons of water and just sort of move slowly so that you can build up the infrastructure in your own home that you need to support sort of more long-term preps. So anyway, I think that that's enough for me on this video. And again, hopefully that was really helpful. If you have any questions or suggestions or comments down below, you guys are always so full of such amazing ideas. We have such wisdom and knowledge and experience in the viewers and the comments. So definitely always go through and read those comments. I know I learn a lot every single time. So I invite you to do the same. And as always, I hope the rest of your day is good and your life stays wonderful. Thank you so much for watching. See you guys later. Bye.